I'm excited about this panel because it's a good segue from the previous panel about big live events, in that virtualized hardware, I believe, is going to change the nature of big events by allowing them to be held in more locations, more easily, without the need of considering whether or not you can get a production truck or equipment shipped into a country as being a gating factor for an event. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Peter. So Peter, take it away.
Thanks, Ken. And take it to another level. They don't have to think about where the equipment is. It couldn't be in your facility, it can be cloud, it can be wherever. So this is a really interesting topic in that it kind of shifts our thinking about buying things. It shifts what we buy, and it shifts where that intellectual property and that software is running. So 30 minutes is kind of tough to talk to this topic at any length, so we're going to be pretty brief on our answers, but I want this to be a non-traditional panel, like you guys riff off of each other. So it's an open conversation. So about maybe 30 seconds each, if you could introduce yourselves and talk to why virtualized hardware is a part of your life and your organization. And I'll start with you, François.
Thank you, Peter. My name is François Legrand. I'm Senior Director of Engineering for CBC Radio-Canada. We are a public broadcaster out of Canada. For those that don't know, we did a major 2110 build over the last, it went on air for the very first time in 2019. We were not the first. I have to reserve that for NEP and what they did in Australia. That was amazing. But we were there shortly after. And when we built that 2110 facility, we knew that we needed a killer app that would make our people want IP so much that they would forget about all the bad sides of IP. Because there is some bad sides. But the killer app at the time was, it allows the migration to software, and software that runs on CUT's computing device. And that's why we really wanted to go IP. It was to be ready for that transition to virtualized hardware, which we'll talk together.
Good afternoon, guys. I'm Andrew Osmond. I'm Director of Business Development for Media Transport at Evertz. Virtualized hardware is becoming more and more critical. I think a lot of the products we sell these days are either server-based, cloud-based apps. I think it's been driven by the standardization of IP interfaces and the improvement in performance in processing units that allows us to do more and more complex functions in server-based or cloud hardware.
Thank you, Jared Timmins. I SVP of Innovation for Diversified, and I think more and more for us, the challenge is we can no longer be building worst-case facilities for our clients, both because the pace of change is moving so fast and the way that they need to operate the technologies they use is moving probably even faster. So for us, we believe that virtualized hardware opens up the adaptable content center of the future that allows us to paint with a different kind of brush on a different kind of canvas. And it's these workflows that I think future-proof what we're doing today and bring us to the place where we can combine AI payloads with broadcast environments and create hardware infrastructures that allow our clients to do more than just media on those tool sets. And being able to have that construction of hardware is becoming more and more critical for how we do any integration project we do.
Good afternoon, Thomas True. I'm a senior applied engineer from NVIDIA for professional media workflows. I'm one of the members of the team that's developing the HoloScan for Media reference platform. So it's a platform built on COTS hardware, so off-the-shelf servers, and then open source software, Kubernetes, Helm, things like that for professional media workflows, whether these be traditional transcoding workflows or new AI workflows. So I'm in the guts of working with developers who develop software for this virtualized platform.
So is this answering a problem that exists today, or is this the natural progression of the 2110 architecture? So we hear the word bespoke almost too much. Like, I get tired of hearing bespoke hardware, but it is a thing. Like, when you try to merge a 2110, a shiny new 2110 facility with either a lot of legacy SDI gear or new 2110 equipment, but it has supply chain issues and you're not going to see it in your facility for 6 months when you place the PO. So are we seeing this as a natural progression to the supply chain issues? And the second part to that is does the customer now not have to worry about their workflow in cloud or on-prem? Is this an answer to that? And I ask any of you to that. Is this kind of the natural progression, or are we creating, I guess, problems that don't exist, or are they real problems?
I mean, from the manufacturer's point of view, I see it as a natural progression because 2110 is based on UDP and RDP and Ethernet, and that's typical networking technology, common IT technology. And then your second part of your question was about the customer. And for us, whether the application, if it's truly done right, is running in the cloud or on-prem on this virtualized device, it should look the same to the creative person that's using it.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that, Thomas. I think that, sorry, I've lost my train of thought. Go ahead.
That's a great question. Is it a problem that exists today? No. Okay. Internally, my department works like a system integrator, and same as you guys, same as, as Jared, obviously. So when our internal customer reach to my team, now they have a problem, now I know how to fix it now. So there's no uncertainty. The problem is that infrastructure takes months to build. And even if it would take weeks, by the time it's delivered, my client is already elsewhere. And I'm sure you have that with your own client. By the time you deliver, they have new idea, change requests, they want to do things differently. And to me, this is a solution that allow me to build today infrastructure that will be relevant to my internal client tomorrow. And without that virtualized hardware, software that takes the place of hardware, I don't see how I can build that. So to me, it's a solution to not having a crystal ball, basically.
And it sort of uncuffs the 10-year look ahead. It allows you to be a little more nimble.
Yeah, it's impossible to look ahead 10 years.
Yeah, but that's the way we used to do it. I mean, right? We used to think in terms of router technology would last in the facility for, at minimum 8 years, maybe more. So this allows the industry to be a little more nimble is the way I look at it, and pivot quickly.
I couldn't agree more. I think that for the first time in my career being in media, now almost 20 years to date myself, we're no longer in control of the tech stack like we used to be. You talk about bespoke, it was because no one else was creating that kind of compute that could do those kinds of complex things. Our workflows are rounding errors to the kind of compute that's needed for AI now. And most modern organizations need their infrastructure to be adaptable, right? I think it's kind of the whole Uber mentality where most of our cars sit in our driveway unused like 70, 80% of the time, right? We pay a lot of money to use that car for 20% of the time. And I think these new kinds of virtualized hardware architectures allow us to make these canvases, these compute canvases we built, adaptable not just for media workflows and or workplace workflows, but for financial workflows and institutions when they're not using that. So your broadcast day ends, you have all this compute, especially in this revolution of AI that we're in, that could be working for you. And building up the software that allows us to address it that fluidly and scalable, I think, is a requirement for us to keep up with the rest of technology.
Yeah, I think for...
sorry, Andrew, I was going to toss to you because what strikes me was Max at the Evertz booth here showed me COTS server, and he had Bravo running as a production switcher platform, which was not cloud-based. It was running on that server, and then switched over to the Dreamcatcher app that was running on that very same server, and that was wow, this is really, really impressive. A one rack unit server running very heavy duty applications, and I'm assuming there was probably a number of other apps you probably could have put on that server. So how has Evertz pivoted a little bit in this world? Because Evertz has got their own silicone manufacturing plants. They can pivot very quickly and make custom hardware within months instead of years. So how are they transitioning this?
So we do offer those products that you just mentioned on our own servers or COTS servers or running in the cloud. There's an application in Brazil running on Google Cloud right now for Tier 1 sports already. I think they've run about 100 events using Dreamcatcher over the last year, so that's already in place. I think we need to be positioned to be able to offer all those different types of compute, though, both our own servers and all different clouds. We are agnostic, cloud agnostic, and FPGA, what I would call FPGA compute as well, because we want to be able to serve all customers. The FPGAs will run lower latency. But basically, in order to maintain our current level of business, which is a challenge with this, I think we have to be able to offer different types of implementations, and that's what we do. So we maintain that. Delighted to work with François on his new product to have, a single unit of deployment, Ethernet-connected compute clusters for his vision going forward. But at the same time, maybe more custom servers for certain applications for other customers, and even still offer SDI, because when it comes down to it, it's all about total cost of ownership. And not everybody has the same budget that François does. So there's a lot of things to think about.
Sort of riffing on that. So, François, you're kind of the impetus to this topic for me, because I got involved in some stuff that CBC's been working on. If you can talk to it, cool. If you can't, cool. But my question to you in general is, has it been difficult to drag the industry to where you want to go sooner than later? Or are you seeing a lot of people signing up and going, yeah, I want to hop on that bandwagon? Curious of what your take is on that.
Yeah, it's always difficult to take people outside of their comfort zone.
Yep.
It's difficult for me as an engineer. It's difficult for my team. It's difficult for our internal user. And yes, it's difficult for the rest of the industry. But the key to me is to partner with like-minded people that have the same goal and that want to go in the same direction as you. And it starts slowly. When we did the very first trial of 2110, there were no 2110 project on the market. So basically, we developed internally. Well, at that time, we didn't want it to call it 2110 because it was not 2110 compliant. But we added RFC 4175 support to FFmpeg, open source, which is a key component of 2110 in order to learn from it. And people thought we were crazy. And the very first people we had discussions with during that project are the people that developed RiverMax afterwards. So at the time, it was not a given that it would take the market. By now, nobody is arguing about the value of RiverMax in moving into that direction. So I believe you go slowly, you find like-minded people. I hope some of you believe what we want to do is the right thing to do and follow in our direction. What you talked about, that project, I can speak about it.
Okay.
We released a major tender to the market to procure media processing applications. So think of an audio mixer, but in software, or a multi-viewer, but in software. And part of that exercise, we got 160 proposals for applications. So a bunch of vendor multiplied by a bunch of available application equals 160. So I believe there is an interest in that direction, but the problem is that none of them, or very few of them, are compatible together. So to put together a large workflow pretty much requires me to buy all of those apps from the same manufacturer, and it goes a bit against what we're trying to build here. So
putting all your eggs in that one basket.
Exactly.
That problem still exists.
Yeah, I mean, of the developers that I work with or that we work with, I mean, everyone sees the vision, they want to get there, but we're working through a lot of teething issues, right? I mean, it's not only a transition from SDI to IP, but now you're going to COTS hardware. So you need to take the server and make sure it's optimally configured so that the GPUs can efficiently talk to the network interface cards and the CPU and all those kind of details which need to be worked out. So, I mean, and then you have video engineers that are learning networking and Kubernetes and all this other software type things. So we're working and getting there, but there's a lot to do still.
Jared.
Yeah, I'd love to chime in on this because I think we definitely have a maturization issue, especially in broadcast right now. It's a different kind of water that we're swimming in when you move into these kinds of architectures, these decentralized infrastructures. And I think I would say that not all microservices, not all containers are created equal. And I think a lot of times we do the quickest thing that we can do to check a box that we are cloud ready or ready for decentralized architecture, but that is nowhere near the table stakes. And I think that there is a large push across our organization and all of the vendor partners that we have to really start to upscale the community so that we're working with the right pieces so they can connect together, so we truly can realize that virtualized hardware, but with best of breed solutions mixed into it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think in addition to some of the technical challenges we've talked about, just put my business hat on for a second, this is a change to OpEx as well. So, companies, my customers certainly are more used to spending money under the CapEx umbrella, but now the whole organization is going to have to change the way they do business. They're going to be buying licenses. What kind of licenses? How can they ensure they're still profitable? How can the vendors ensure we're still profitable? What kind of license model should we use? It'll affect the operations people, obviously, because they're going to be now deploying and spinning up apps instead of connecting hardware together. But the finance department, the operations department, everybody's going to be affected by this. So it is a big change in that way, for sure.
So I'm putting myself in François' shoes as being on the other side of the tracks for most of my career. How do we get to the point where interop testing is happening, AKA Fox Network many years ago at the Woodlands did a lot of 2110 interop testing. And I don't know if Mike Davies is in the room, but that was an amazing thing. Everybody refers back to that interop testing as a really big moment that got everybody in the room. Plug fests were happening for weeks. Do we see a day that a François doesn't have to be beholden to one company to provide everything that works really well together, but then what happens when he wants to replace one component of that ecosystem and it's just not going to work? So, or it might work, but it doesn't work as gracefully as if you had the product that was amongst all of the other things. So do we see a day when everybody will talk, all the apps will work flawlessly with each other? The RDMA, which is the memory buffer that 2110 talks to each other apart, is all of that going to work really well, or are we going to have a bumpy road getting to that point? Don't mean to be doom and gloom, but...
Yeah, I will answer to that. I recognize what Fox did at the Woodlands is amazing, and that was a manufacturers-only event, so all the manufacturers were there to test their implementation together. A few broadcasters like us found a way to get there. BBC found a way to get there. Fox found a way to get there. They were organizing it. We show up with our 2110 implementation in FFmpeg, and we plug it against the other to help to develop that standard. And I believe that whatever technology is going to allow virtualized hardware, software to be connected together will have to go through the same process. The good news is that when it's not going to work, they will not require silicon update, or it's not going to be a complex FPGA that it takes 12 hours to synthesize the code that goes into it and then test again. Moving to software will allow those tests to be much, much faster. So I believe it's going to take work, but there is vendor, broadcaster, integrator willing to take that work, and it will make it available to other one in the future. This morning, there were a session about 2110 in the enterprise industry, and I really liked it because they were speaking about how much NMOS make their life so much easier now than before. And the last NMOS Plugfest was done at CBC in our lab. So we were willing to do that work. It's going to take work, but it's part of innovation.
How has NVIDIA changed the game? And I'm going to throw you a softball. Like, to me, everybody talks about NVIDIA being at the center of a lot of this capability because of RiverMax. So, Tom, you want to talk to that?
I mean, our goal at NVIDIA is to empower developers. So in the video over IP space, it's RiverMax, which is our SDK for our network I/O cards that when they came from Mellanox when NVIDIA acquired the Mellanox technology. And then, and then we have SDKs on top of that for AI capabilities and transcoding and that utilize the GPU. So we try to empower developers as much as we can. And then we're also trying to, in this case, facilitate interoperability testing as much as we can. So at the moment, for our Holoscan for Media platform, we have several POCs in process, of which is at François' facility. And
I thought we had an NDA, so now I can speak about it?
yes.
That's good. Okay, good. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
Yeah, so we have several POCs in place where we're attempting to do as much interoperability testing as possible. So, but I mean, we do see a vision where there's more formal interoperability testing at some point. But yeah, it's all about empowering the developers because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are going to bring the software to get to the market that works all together with everyone else so we can build workflows.
Jared, what's been the challenge for Diversified when walking into, let's say, a mid to large size environment? And this is a relatively new topic, virtualized hardware, but FPGA's been around for a while. I mean, Lavo started FPGA stuff years ago, but we still see a lot of bespoke things getting purchased and installed in customers within Diversified's ecosystem. So what do you see the challenges are in kind of pulling them into this new world of thinking?
I mean, I think there's the technology challenge just for the compatibility that we need. And I think there's a lot of Amazon, NVIDIA, a lot of companies that are really bringing together the tool sets to accomplish that. And I think there is, behind the scenes, maybe not marketed as well, but a lot of interop going on and a lot of refactoring of software going on that I think is moving that forward. But I think you had mentioned earlier, is there reason to be worried or negative about certain vendors making this jump? And I think there certainly is. Because the cloud hasn't been realized in the way that we all probably hoped for, right? Largely because we haven't been able to architect in the way that we can break the EC2 binary, we can use virtual shared memory environments to be elastic. But what I see, especially in NVIDIA's platform, to your statement about developers, is upstart developers that don't have any of the baggage that current vendors in the community have, that are able to start digital, that are able to operate differently. And now that, outside of broadcast, almost every technology company is using large swaths of AI to augment their development. And I think for us as an industry, it's never going to get slower than it is right now. And I think it is absolutely imperative that as we talk together, we're not just talking about what the status quo is, but what does it mean for media in this way that we're moving? Is it bigger than 2110? How are we going to provide these frameworks that allow clients to do business model experimentation, because we are in an arms race? We got to create more content than we've ever created. There's more competition for that content. And I think that it requires a different way of architecting and also a different way of us as an integrator with our community of vendors working together. We have to function a lot more like joint DevOps teams towards a singular goal than we have of organizations that are pulling up to a job site and just plugging things in together.
Andrew, thoughts?
Yeah, completely agree with what Jared just said. I think some of the challenges for us as a manufacturer will be around the deployment. As you said, not all containers are the same. Also, we're going to need an app store. We need a community of app developers. We've all got to get kind of standardized on that. These are new challenges for us and different kinds of standards than we've been used to, certainly in the transport industry. But, fortunately, there's some precedents for it. Group of service providers within Etsy have a group called Network Function Virtualization. So I think maybe we can look at some of the things that they've done and try and build on that. I think they were looking at just reducing costs by having an all software model, recomposable, connected clusters of compute, similar to what François' vision is for us. So maybe we have something we can learn from.
How do we see the traditional facility? And we talked about this when we transitioned from SDI to 2110. How do we see the typical workforce migrating into this environment where, you had a guy that supported all of your comms, you had a guy that supported, or girl that supported playback and ingest, you had a post engineer. do we see that changing, or are these folks that are in place now going to rock and roll and in fact maybe have a better day at the office than they did before? How are you seeing customers? I'm going to throw to you, Tom. I mean, has the workforce changed in the broadcast environment with this new platform? Or is it the same guy, same girl?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a bit large view to that because I don't work at a facility, but yeah, I mean, you pretty much still have the same positions in place. It's just now it's running on COTS hardware instead of bespoke pieces of hardware. I mean, you still have expertise in different areas instead of a generalist, I think.
Is this the missing link for facilities to transition and scale to cloud on demand and then scale back to their on-prem metal? And everything gracefully works instead of these crazy disconnected architectures where if you scale to cloud, it's a completely different architecture than what you have on-prem. And I'm asking anybody on the panel that.
No, well, I'll start since I was talking before, but yeah, this is, I think, the first step. I mean, to the user, it should be the same view, whether it's cloud or on-prem, and yeah, it should be this pretty much almost the same hardware. I mean, we're still working out some of the ground to cloud, cloud to ground kind of stuff through some of the industry organizations, but yeah, this is the first step.
I think the hardest API to solve for is the human API. If you think about the amount of change, especially maybe not in operator workflows, but definitely in engineering teams, even amongst our own engineering teams that we have to upscale, we're asking a lot. You know, the move from SDI to 2110 to cloud, now to virtualized hardware and AI. And I think it is imperative that you measure the change management that you have to create amongst that engineering team. But from the operators, I think, you know, there was a great comment during the panel earlier today about AI and virtual production, which is, it's still about the story, right? Yep. And the story can't change, and I think that's the thing that has to remain human because it's got to reach humans, it's got to touch humans. So I think those roles will augment, and people will be able to do a whole lot more with less. But if we do not take a proactive way to helping our engineers today move into these areas and train, we're always going to be behind the 8 ball because there is demand across a whole suite of technology companies for those same engineers.
I would like to, this is an event organized in association with SVG. So I highly recommend you go on their website and you look for an article that was written during the last Paris game about a project called the Virtual OB Van. This project was done by NEP with OBS, and there's picture, there's text about it, and what's amazing is that it's all virtualized hardware underneath, but the user don't even know. It's not physical hardware. So it was designed in a way that they make the user comfortable so that for them, the creative people, the people shading the camera, the switcher operator, it was the same. However, for the people that build it, that was a hell of a challenge because it is new technology. And those, those are highly curious people. They are people that like to push the boundaries, like to new thing. They very often comes from the broadcast industry, but they may come from the IT industry. What they have in common is that they're curious and they want to push the boundaries, and this is the kind of people you need to build those systems.
Yeah, and they're okay breaking things as long as they fix those things very quickly, and it seems like this platform is what allows our industry to be very nimble, which in the last decades has not been the case. So this was an awesome panel. We could go for hours. So thank you, everybody, for your time. Thank you, panelists. I really appreciate your time.